Welcome to the next episode of Beyond the Veil. It's August 2026 right now, and if you just look at the cultural landscape, there's it's a massive, undeniable surge happening everywhere.
Oh, you're talking about the retreat trend, right? The silent ones.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people are paying literally thousands of dollars to go out to the middle of nowhere, hand their smartphones over to a total stranger, and just sit in absolute uninterrupted silence for days.
Which is wild when you think about it, but also it makes complete sense.
It totally does, because we're collectively realizing that the loudest, most chaotic place on Earth isn't, a busy city intersection. It's actually the inside of our own heads.
Right. The mental noise is just deafening.
It really is. And real quick, if you want a deeper and more advanced and accurate take on spirituality, this podcast is for you. Because today, we are completely skipping past the 101 introductory concepts.
We're getting right into the advanced mechanics today.
Exactly. We're exploring what actually happens when you get quiet enough to hear what's buried underneath all that modern noise. So we're unpacking this really profound piece of writing titled The Return of the Inner Elder, which was written by Master Spiritwalker.
And, the timing of those silent retreats you just mentioned, it serves as the perfect cultural backdrop for this text.
It really is a perfect parallel.
Right. So our mission for you today is to decode the psychological and spiritual mechanics of a very specific shift that Master Spiritwalker outlines.
And it's a big shift.
Huge. We are moving beyond that beginner's phase of seeking external spiritual validation. We're diving into the terrifying but ultimately liberating transition into real self-trust.
Which is so much harder than it sounds.
Oh, absolutely. So we need to rigorously break down how you actually differentiate the true voice of this inner elder from your deeply buried fears or your unhealed trauma.
Or even just an ego that's basically put on a spiritual disguise, right?
Exactly. The spiritualized ego is a massive hurdle.
Well, let's unpack the very beginning of that journey. Because it feels like every spiritual awakening actually starts out incredibly noisy.
Oh, it's chaotic.
Yeah, like when you first get interested in conscious living, you don't just start in a state of Zen-like silence. You start by consuming literally everything you can get your hands on.
Right. You're reading the ancient texts, you're listening to modern
You're
teachers.
downloading every podcast, comparing different philosophies. The energy is just so outward. And frankly, it's almost frantic.
You're desperately looking for someone to hand you the ultimate answer key to the universe.
Exactly. And Master Spiritwalker, who we usually just refer to as Spirit, he diagnoses this early frantic phase with a lot of grace, I think.
He really does. He points out that this stage of, gathering fragments of wisdom from external sources, it's not a mistake at all.
Right.
It's actually an architectural necessity. Because when you're just beginning to wake up, you don't yet have the internal framework to trust your own discernment.
Your internal baseline is just heavily polluted by, societal conditioning.
Yeah. And childhood expectations. So studying those ancient traditions and listening to seasoned teachers, it provides this necessary, temporary, external scaffolding.
Scaffolding is such a good word for it.
Yeah, you're essentially using their voices as tuning forks.
Yeah.
Just to help you remember what the frequency of truth actually sounds like.
It's kind of like borrowing someone else's vocabulary until you have the linguistic capacity to speak the language yourself.
I love that analogy, yes.
But Spirit describes this turning point where that scaffolding has to come down, and he notes it's not some dramatic, cinematic moment either.
No, it rarely is.
It's the subtle, almost creeping realization that the desperate urgency to ask another guru or, seek out just one more tarot reading for confirmation, it just starts to soften.
The transition he describes is really the shift from seeking external agreement to sensing internal resonance.
Okay, unpack that a little bit.
So you basically stop asking, is this popular? Or did the ancient texts say, this is the approved method? And you begin to ask a much, much harder question. You ask, does this carry the unmistakable frequency of truth within my own physical and spiritual being?
Okay, wait, I want to stop you right there and push back on this a little bit, because honestly, that sounds terrifying.
Oh, it's absolutely terrifying to the ego.
Because relying on an ancient text or a guru, that's safe. It acts as an insurance policy.
Coolly.
If I navigate my life using someone else's external GPS and I end up in a ditch, well, I can blame the GPS. I can blame the teacher.
You have a scapegoat.
Exactly. But Spirit is basically saying there comes a day when you just turn the external GPS off. And if I turn off that guidance and follow my own internal compass, I am entirely responsible for the crash.
Yep, full accountability.
Isn't it incredibly dangerous or even arrogant to suddenly think, I don't need the external traditions anymore, my inner voice knows better? What if my inner voice tells me to blow up my entire life?
See that terror you're describing right there? That is the exact threshold Master Spiritwalker is illustrating.
Really? The fear itself?
Yes. The fear isn't proof that you shouldn't trust yourself. It is literally just the friction of the ego, realizing it's about to lose its job as the primary navigator.
Oh, wow, that's a great way to put it.
Because arrogance is loud. Arrogance looks at the map and says, I am way smarter than that cartographer.
Right, right.
But what Spirit is describing is the quiet maturation of discernment. It's actually an act of deep humility. You aren't claiming to know the entire layout of the universe.
You're just taking ownership of your own little local compass.
Exactly, your localized internal compass. When you shift from the panic question of what is the correct path to the grounded question of what does the deepest part of me already know, you strip away that safety net.
The safety net of being able to blame anyone else.
Right. And that doesn't lead to manic, destructive impulses. It actually leads to incredibly sober, deliberate living.
Okay, that distinction between like manic impulses and deliberate knowing leads us directly into the core of the text. Because when I turn off that external GPS, I'm just left with the voices in my own head.
And that can be a very crowded room.
The inside of a modern human mind is a profoundly crowded room. So Master Spiritwalker calls this trusted internal compass the inner elder. How are we defining that mechanically?
The inner elder is the silent witness within your architecture.
The silent witness.
Yeah. It is the presence that is quietly observed every joy, every sorrow, every success, and every crushing failure you have ever experienced.
But wait, my personality and opinions change all the time.
Exactly. Your outward personality, your preferences, your political beliefs, your circumstances, they've likely changed a dozen times over the last decade.
Easily.
But the inner elder has remained entirely static and present. It just observes the changing of those seasons without getting swept away by them.
But we need to be rigorously clear about what the inner elder is not. Because like you said earlier, the ego is a master of disguise.
Oh, it loves to wear spiritual clothing.
It loves to put on a robe and call itself intuition. So how do we mechanistically tell them apart? Like, how do I know if the voice telling me to quit my job is my inner elder, or just my deeply buried fear of failure trying to self-sabotage before I can be fired?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
You have to look at the biological and energetic signature of the voice.
Okay, what does that feel like?
Well, the ego and fear operate on a frequency of urgency and contraction. If a voice in your head is frantic, if it requires immediate action to avoid some imagined catastrophe.
Or if it's like heavily invested in being right and defending itself.
Exactly. If it's defensive against others, that is your ego. The inner elder operates on a frequency of expansion and neutrality.
Neutrality, that's a hard state to achieve.
It is. But the inner elder doesn't compete for your attention. It doesn't argue with your anxiety. It simply sits in the center of the room and states the truth, regardless of how inconvenient that truth is.
So it never feels panicked.
Never. The inner elder never feels frantic. It feels like a heavy, grounded anchor.
Which perfectly sets up Master Spiritwalker's distinction between knowledge and wisdom.
Yes, this is a crucial distinction.
Because knowledge is data, right? It's something you accumulate, memorize, and wield in a debate to prove you're smart. You can literally organize knowledge into a spreadsheet.
You can, but wisdom refuses to be collected like data. Because wisdom is a byproduct of structural collapse.
Structural collapse.
Yeah, Spirit says wisdom is shaped by living, specifically through heartbreak and uncertainty.
Okay, but let me challenge that premise for a second, because doesn't heartbreak usually just create trauma?
It certainly can.
And isn't trauma just another massive source of internal noise? I mean, when someone's belief system is shattered, they usually don't become wise. They become cynical, defensive, and heavily guarded.
Very true.
So how does a shattered belief system mechanistically turn into the wisdom of the inner elder?
That is the critical fork in the road of spiritual maturation. So heartbreak shatters the structure of what you previously thought was true. The ego's response to that shattering is trauma and cynicism. It builds thicker walls to prevent the pain from happening again.
Which creates more noise.
Exactly. That is the noise you're referring to. But the inner elder's response is entirely different. It doesn't try to rebuild the old structure.
So what does it do?
It sits in the rubble. It observes what was lost, and it pays very close attention to what remains standing.
Wow. It sits in the rubble.
The wisdom isn't in the heartbreak itself. It is in the quiet realization of what cannot be broken. That's why Spirit writes, wisdom is never measured by what we know, but by who we become.
I love that quote.
Right. Two people can endure the exact same tragedy. One becomes a fortress of resentment, the other becomes an open field of empathy. The inner elder is the part of you that integrates the rubble into a deeper capacity to hold space for reality.
Integrating the rubble into a deeper capacity to hold space, that is just profound.
It really is.
But, getting to that rubble and actually hearing that neutral, grounded voice, it requires a level of quiet that is biologically hostile to our modern environment.
Oh, the modern world is designed to drown it out.
Completely.
Yeah.
The modern brain is bombarded with conflicting frequencies. We are pressured to consume endless information, gather a million opinions, scroll through thousands of experts a day.
All of them claiming to have the ultimate truth.
Right. The signal-to-noise ratio is completely broken, so the inner elder just gets drowned out by the static.
We are operating in an era of unprecedented neurological and energetic overload.
Yeah.
You cannot simply command a brain that is addicted to external stimuli to suddenly sit in a state of profound, undisturbed inner wisdom.
It's impossible.
It is. The transition requires intentional filtering. To find your baseline frequency, you often need an external environment or a specific energetic intervention that acts as a noise-canceling mechanism.
Which brings us to the reality that you usually can't clear that level of modern static entirely on your own.
Almost no one can.
No. And this is actually why a resource like Starseed Psychic's Marketplace by Nomadic Enterprises becomes a really critical part of the infrastructure for this journey.
Exactly.
Because it functions as a sanctuary. It's this highly curated signal-to-noise filter designed explicitly for lightworkers, empaths, and anyone trying to dig their inner elder out from under the rubble of modern anxiety.
The architectural design of what they offer is quite sophisticated, too, because they address the static on multiple layers of the human experience.
It's not just one thing.
Now, if your mind is too loud to hear the inner elder, sometimes the intervention needs to happen energetically first. So a shamanic reading or an aura clearing, it isn't just esoteric theory.
No, it's highly practical.
Think of it as energetic defragmentation for your nervous system. They also offer clarempathy readings, which specifically help untangle which emotions actually belong to you and which ones you've merely absorbed from the chaotic environment around you.
Which is huge for empaths. And they don't ignore the physical manifestation of that noise either, right? Because when static gets trapped in the body, it literally turns into chronic tension.
It does. It stores itself in the physical tissues.
Yeah, and that is where their Reiki and chakra services provide a necessary somatic reset, moving that trapped energy out so the quiet can actually take root.
And let's not forget the dream interpretation they offer.
Oh, yeah, which is arguably the most direct line to the inner elder when the conscious, waking ego is finally asleep and out of the way.
It's such a powerful tool.
And honestly, I found the inclusion of pet psychics brilliant, because animals act as mirrors for our own unspoken energetic environments.
That's so true. Animals absorb so much of our ambient stress. And the marketplace understands that accessing the inner elder requires restructuring your daily environment, not just your internal state.
Right, your physical space matters.
It really does. So they provide spiritual home decor to create visual anchors of stillness in your space, plus comprehensive home and online study courses for when you are ready to engage with the material systematically.
They even offer spiritual cell phone accessories, which might sound a little surprising at first, but...
Think about it.
Right, think about it. The smartphone is the primary conduit for the world's noise. So putting a protective, intentional anchor on that specific device is just a brilliant way to intercept the static before it even enters your field.
It's all built on a very uncompromising motto. Your awakening is our purpose.
It's a great mission.
Yeah.
And utilizing external tools in this way is very different from the frantic searching we discussed at the beginning of the episode.
Completely different.
You aren't using these services to give you the ultimate answers. You're using them to clear the energetic blockages so you can hear your own answers.
Exactly. It is about using a clean mirror to reflect your own inner wisdom back to you.
And for those of you who want to dive deeper into the foundational texts that act as these mirrors, a link will always be provided in the description where you can purchase books by author Spiritwalker, also known as Master Psychic Spiritwalker.
Yes, his work is phenomenal.
He really has poured decades of master psychic experience into his groundbreaking work. And you'll also find links for author Cheyenne James, who writes as Psychic Gypsy Wind. She offers incredibly sharp insights that complement this journey of awakening perfectly, so make sure to check the description for those links.
Highly recommend checking those out. So let's bring this back to the behavioral mechanics of Master Spiritwalker's text.
Let's do it.
Because when you utilize these tools and clear the static and actually begin operating from the frequency of the inner elder, your external behavior undergoes a radical transformation.
What's the biggest shift you see?
The most glaring symptom that you have successfully transitioned from ego to inner authority is that the burning need to convince other people of your truth completely evaporates.
Okay, we really need to pause on this because it exposes how most of us operate day to day.
Oh, big time.
I mean, it used to be that every time someone disagreed with me on a spiritual concept or just a philosophical worldview, my nervous system would instantly spike.
You'd feel attacked.
Yes.
Ah.
I felt this aggressive responsibility to defend my perspective. It was honestly like being a deeply insecure movie critic.
A movie critic. I like that.
Yeah, imagine walking out of a theater, right? And you absolutely loved the film, but the stranger next to you hated it.
Okay.
Operating from the ego means standing in the lobby for an hour, debating them, armed with bullet points about the cinematography, desperately trying to force them to adopt your reality.
That is a perfect analogy. Because the desperation to convince them is actually a symptom of your own lingering doubt.
Right?
The ego requires a consensus to feel secure. If the stranger hates the movie, the ego feels threatened because its reality is built on external validation. It automatically thinks, wait, if they don't agree with me, maybe I'm wrong.
But the new way, like the operating system of the inner elder, is just walking to your car in peace.
Exactly.
Just deeply enjoying the fact that you experienced a great film. You feel this profound physical relief when you realize you are no longer the universe's designated defense attorney.
It is such a relief.
Truth does not gain mass just because a stranger in the lobby agreed with you, and it doesn't lose gravity because they rejected it.
Spirit articulates the danger of that lobby debate perfectly. He warns that certainty, that desperate, rigid need to be absolutely undeniably right, it inevitably hardens into a prison of superiority.
A prison of superiority. Wow.
And when you're trapped in that prison, you isolate yourself from the flow of ongoing wisdom.
Yeah.
True inner authority rarely announces itself.
So people who are genuinely anchored in their inner elder, they don't need to evangelize their awakening,
Never.
because true confidence looks almost indistinguishable from humility to the untrained eye.
Precisely. The wisest souls, according to Master Spiritwalker, allow others the ultimate dignity of walking their own path at their own pace.
Even if they're making mistakes.
Even if that path involves making huge mistakes, they remain entirely faithful to their own internal resonance without needing to drag anyone else along.
They don't act as though they have reached the ultimate finish line of enlightenment.
Right, because there is no finish line. Instead, they remain profoundly curious, recognizing that no matter how deep they go, the universe will always present another horizon beyond the current one.
It is the ultimate paradox of spiritual maturity, isn't it? The more you genuinely know, the less you feel the need to prove it to anyone.
Exactly.
So let's bring this down to the ground level for the listener who is sitting here right now. Maybe they are realizing they've been running on that external GPS for years.
Terrified of taking the wheel.
Yeah, terrified. But they are finally ready to get quiet. When you strip away the frantic searching and the ego's debates and the environmental noise, what does it actually feel like in the body when the inner elder finally speaks?
Spirit describes the somatic experience of this in a way that just completely defies typical spiritual cliches. Well, when the inner elder speaks, it does not arrive with a jolt of shocking manic excitement.
It's not a lightning bolt.
No, it doesn't sound like a booming voice from the heavens handing down stone tablets. Instead, it fills your nervous system with a deep, heavy sense of recognition.
Recognition.
Yes. He describes it as feeling like a forgotten conversation, resuming after many years apart. It's a quiet, unmistakable sense of coming home.
A sense of coming home. Wow. When you stop bracing against the world and finally just let yourself sink into that foundation.
And the most beautiful part of this realization is the retrospective clarity it provides.
What do you mean by that?
When you finally reach that place of quiet,
Yeah.
you can look back at the timeline of your life and realize that this presence was never actually absent.
It was always there.
Always.
Yep.
You just couldn't hear it clearly over the roar of your own anxiety and the demands of the crowd.
It was there all along. It was the driving force behind those major life decisions you made that defied all logic, that made absolutely no sense on a spreadsheet, but ultimately proved to be the exact right move.
Exactly.
It was that tiny, undeniable whisper in your gut saying, not this way, even when all the external experts were insisting otherwise.
It was there every single time. You chose painful authenticity over cheap approval. The profound, closing realization that Master Spiritwalker presents to us is that the wise teacher you spent decades searching for in the books, in the retreats, in the ancient traditions.
He was never hiding from you.
It was never hiding.
It was just patiently waiting for you to exhaust yourself, waiting for you to put down the magnifying glass, stop interviewing everyone else, and just get quiet.
Yes.
Discovering that the oldest, wisest teacher is already integrated into your own architecture, I mean, it fundamentally rewires how you interact with reality.
It changes your whole operating system.
You don't abandon the books, you don't stop learning, but you interact with knowledge from a place of unshakable steadiness instead of frantic desperation. Wisdom is no longer a prize you have to chase down and capture.
It becomes a frequency you simply remember how to tune into.
And that changes absolutely everything about how you navigate the remainder of your life.
It really does.
Well, I want to leave you with a final thought to wrestle with today, building on the mechanics we've just decoded.
Okay.
If your inner elder has been quietly walking beside you, observing every single moment, every shattered belief, and every hidden joy of your entire life, what specific piece of modern noise is currently drowning it out?
That's a powerful question.
Right. Maybe it's the relentless ping of a group chat or a doom-scrolling algorithm you fall into at midnight, or maybe a very heavy unspoken expectation from your family.
Yeah.
What is the loudest thing in your environment right now keeping you from hearing the most urgent piece of advice your inner elder is trying to hand you today?
That is the exact question where the real work begins.
It truly is. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. Don't forget to check the links in the description for the resources and books we mentioned from author Spiritwalker and author Cheyenne James. Take care of yourselves, ruthlessly guard your quiet this week, and we will see you next time.